Welcome to the behind the scenes for our Back to the Future clock tower scene. This is my favorite movie, so I'm excited to show you how we brought it to life. Let's take a look. It's hard for me to pick a single favorite movie, but whenever anybody asks, I have to say Back to the Future. And the fans have requested this particular scene, so this is a really special one for me. The first step was to make the costumes, and there's only 2 characters in this, so pretty easy, but very iconic. You know, the vest was pretty particular. Something not quite right with this Marty outfit. Can't put my finger on it. I found a blue vest that looked pretty good, had the right shapes and lines and everything, but we had to change the color somehow. So I'm just gonna head through the old color changing costume portal, see what happens. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, now we're talking. Okay, so I just used the regular method, which was spray paint. You might not see it, but we also have a pretty close replica of the watch that Marty wears. We borrowed that from our buddy Bosco, who is a big Back to the Future fan. I don't have those classic Nikes, so we turned my white Adidas into Nikes. Adidas, whoosh, Nikes. Doc's outfit, pretty simple too. I found one at a thrift store that looked pretty close. I just had to add the black collar. Instant vintage. And then he just has a khaki colored overcoat, and I kind of snipped some of the extra buckles and things off of it. And then our buddy Piot, who does amazing impressions, does the greatest Doc Brown voice ever.
I'm sure that in 1985 plutonium is available at every corner drugstore, but in 1955 it's a little hard to come by.
And he had this crazy wig that he's used in videos before, and it has kind of like a bald part on the top, and it was a little long and crazy. I just gave it a little bit of a trim, so it didn't look so much like Bozo the Clown. It was more crazy mad scientist. My hair is not quite long enough for Marty. I found just a random brown wig in the attic that when you kind of mat it down and part it just right, it helps sell the Marty look. Most of Doc's shots take place up on the clock tower. We were able to just build the clock and have him act his parts out in front of it. My technique for making big circles is to just take a piece of string and tie knots at either end. You can stick a pencil in and another pencil in, kind of like just a big compass, and you just drag it all the way around. Figuring out exactly where to place the letters on this thing is way trickier than I thought. And I was down on the ground, hunched over, doing this thing for hours, just figuring out exactly where those Roman numerals go, make sure that they're spaced out correctly. And once it was done, it was like, okay, we are doing Back to the Future. My wife Priscilla wants to keep it in the house. She loves it. So we brought in a pretty big fan in the living room to really get the wind right. Flashing a flashlight for lightning. His hair is blowing. He really looks like Doc up on the clock tower. And it just all took place right in my living room. For the interior of the car, there's a lot of little particular elements that you gotta make. You've got the digital speedometer. I made it with one side at 61 miles an hour, and the other side has 88 miles per hour. And then you've got the alarm clock and the time circuits. I just drew that out on a flat piece of cardboard, spray painted the different colored strips, and then just filled in the negative space with a black Sharpie to make the digital numbers. We actually did some real driving in this one. Normally we don't do real driving, but had to get the speedometer readout and kind of show the street lights in the distance, so all that stuff taped up on the dash there. It was like you're sitting in the movie.
I mean, look at this. I got the speedometer, the clock, the time circuits. That was like living a dream.
Now behind Marty is the flux capacitor. It's kind of just blinking in the darkness there. But if I was going to build this thing, I wanted to make sure I built it right. It's just a box that I had that was a similar shape. Put a little window in there, and I had some leftover twinkly lights that I found in the attic. So I just kind of stretched those through some holes and made the shape and bundled it all up in the back, and then just added some little details. The finishing touch is the little red labels. I happen to have an old school label maker because I like labeling stuff with it. There you go. That's how you do it, kids. Now on the other side, he's got the voltage meter. Bosco had a good idea to put something on the iPad, which I shot ahead of time by just spray painting some strips of cardboard bright green, kind of filmed them moving in different patterns. You got the flux capacitor and the voltage meter. Act like you're driving, you're traveling through time. So in this final shot of Marty in the DeLorean, I'm controlling some flashing lightning and of course the blow dryer. You get a nice wind. We had to get the tree branch with a certain bend in it, so we gathered up some tree branches and like broke them and reconnected them so it sort of had that bend, and that way the wire could just go under it. Somebody always had to be holding it up so he could tug on it. We did have the wind machine out there, always going. We even cut up a handful of leaves out of just some brown paper bags and dropped those in front of the fan in a few shots, and you gotta have the leaves that go by. The leaves also sort of cover up the couch cushions that we used in one shot. There's no cushion here. No cushion at all. They don't really cover it up, but they're there. So there is the big moment where Doc finally connects the wires at the last second, and then all the electricity rushes through. We started with a clean plate of him just doing the motion, and then we just cut. He held really still, and then we set up a bunch of yarn and tried to just light it really bright, and then we had him hold children's sparklers that you use in birthday cakes, I guess. They're safe to use, and they go for 30 seconds, so we just lit them and put them in his hands, and on action, everything just goes at once. We pull the yarn, kind of looks like the lightning dissipating, and then he goes flying back. And luckily, nobody burned their face off. We've done a lot of episodes of homemade movies now, but this is the first time that we had people walking up off the street like in awe of what we were doing, because when we had Piot in his full Doc outfit and me in the Marty outfit standing outside, even from down the street, it's instantly recognizable. So once all the live action stuff was wrapped, we moved into miniature mode. We built a clock tower. We actually did it in 2 different scales. We've got our mini one that we're gonna put some sparks on top of, and we've got our close-up one which fits the scale of Doc Brown, who's gonna hang on to the clock here. So we had our buddy Ben come in and help with some of these miniatures, and he worked on the smaller clock tower and helped me do some of the arts and crafts type stuff. We also did the movie theater where Marty finally goes back in time there. You get a good view of this nice movie theater with the Atomic Kid playing on the marquee. And we were sure to look that up too, because we didn't want to just put anything on there.
We just did a mad internet search to find out what the text is underneath the Atomic Kid marquee. Found out it's Mickey Rooney and Robert Strauss. It's going on the marquee.
For some of the rest of the street, we repurposed some of our modular street pieces that we made for the Fast and the Furious scene. Ben made a bunch of little signs that matched the signs in the Back to the Future, just to kind of put on depending on what the shot was. I tried to find some Hot Wheels that looked like 50s cars, and there weren't as many as I was hoping for. So I found some cars that were close, and we painted them kind of more 50s colors, so that way when they appear in the background, they look more like 50s cars. I also made Mini Doc, which was just a regular G.I. Joe that we had, and I shaved off some of the extra pieces that were kind of on the chest and whatever, painted it, matched the same little shirt, and made the overcoat, which I used from a small piece of fabric that I took off the actual overcoat. And then I used some white yarn, unraveled it, and made the little hairpiece. So for the DeLorean, instead of trying to make something from scratch like I normally would, I actually had this DeLorean model. I've had it for years. I just added the connecting hook. It worked great for a lot of the close-ups. You've got shots of the tires, you've got the back of this thing, but I also had this small version for some of the wider shots, and we tied a string to it and pulled it down the street. Now we made sure that the city and the movie theater matched this scale, so we didn't have to build everything so huge to match this big one. When the DeLorean goes back through time, obviously it always leaves the fire trails, and we decided, okay, instead of using real fire, what's the really homemade way of doing this? And it's actually just cutting out little tiny flames. We just took little pieces of paper and we spray painted it with this crazy bright orange spray paint that we have. And then for the shot where it actually happens, Ben just pushes the fire trails underneath the camera, whoosh, so they go out like that. Some of the lightning, we just kind of did it in reverse with yarn. We kind of like attached it and then pulled it away so that we could play it in reverse, and it looks like it's coming down and striking. And then for the big lightning strike, we did a combination of yarn and some of those sparklers again. They're safe for indoor use, by the way, because they're for birthday cakes. And then there's some lightning that comes flying down the wire, so we just kind of stuck the yarn on there and pulled it down. Now, the shot of the DeLorean as it goes through time, we did it with a jump cut. We got a clean plate of the larger DeLorean driving down the street, and then without moving anything, we set up the version of the wire that has the lightning on it. So this yarn is going to be our electricity. And set up the smoke machine and flash the lightning at the right moment, and then pull the yarn away so the electricity kind of goes away. And so when you cut them together, it just has a really cool effect. So the music was a big deal on this one. This movie has an amazing score. In fact, the Back to the Future soundtrack is the first tape that I bought with my own money. Listening to that thing over and over. So I know the score backwards and forwards. And that tape is actually part of my cassette tape lamp that I built. So this is a very special movie to me and a special soundtrack. And so recreating the score was a lot of fun. Once again, it's just me sitting down with a microphone and just recording layer by layer by layer, and just building and trying to do all the different instruments and just using my voice, so it's like a fun a cappella homemade version of the score. And that's how we brought Back to the Future to life. Be sure and subscribe to Cinefix because we've got new episodes every Tuesday. And let us know in the comments what other trailers and scenes we should try. So we'll see you next week. I gotta hit the road. Where we're going, we don't need roads. There's a car in the distance. Oh, wait, no, it's just some LEDs. So we're using some of the lights on this. Yes.
Let me explain time travel. Alright, you might want to sit down for this.
Final shot.
That's a wrap.